Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this Instagram Live. So, are you strengthening your ego or are you transcending it? That is our topic today. Just going to send some invitations. And Soul Brother Franz should be entering the room very soon. All right. For now, we can take some breaths together. Breathing in through the nose, expand the belly, and breathe out of the mouth and contract the belly. A few more times. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Let yourself just be in this moment, releasing the mind, releasing resistance, or releasing any judgment around resistance that you have or tension. There we go. Soul Brothers in the house. Amazing. Love all the calming colors, the creams and the white.
Oh, hi,
How
Tristan.
are you?
It's so good to see you finally.
You too. How's your setup? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good now.
Perfect. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you for being here today. Really excited to talk about this topic. So again, the question for our topic is, are you strengthening your ego or transcending it? And Franz, would you like to start off by letting the audience know what it is you feel ego transcendence is and ego strengthening?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for having me, first of all, Tristan.
Absolutely. So
I
happy to be here.
I really appreciate you, and uh, yeah, thanks also for doing this talk about this beautiful and very important topic with me today. To answer your question, I feel that ego strengthening is basically improving the best version of yourself in terms of your body and your
You
system.
just spun out, so actually, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. So so ego strengthening is really your like the the try to improve, or the strive for improving your system, your body, your thoughts, like how this system is working, how you are working in this life, while ego transcending is actually seeing behind that system. I like to call it body mind. Yeah, to see behind that body mind, and to recognize that that you are something deeper, and something more profound, and also more granular than your body, your mind, your ego, your system.
I love that. Behind the body and the mind are senses. So do you feel that the way we can transcend it is through stillness then?
Well, stillness definitely
Mm-hmm.
is the
Yeah.
key,
Yeah.
because through stillness we can meet ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
And while we are very busy in our lives, like right now, the whole world is running on a very fast level. We are functioning on high frequency beta brain waves that keep us active busy. And even if we're like you and me, we're just sitting there. Many people sit there, but the busyness continues in their mind. And so, connecting to stillness in whichever way you can, and meditation is one of them, but there are others as well. So, really connecting to that stillness within, that's the key.
For sure. I think having a good balance of the mind and heart are really important. Not to try and push the mind away or make it an enemy is really key in evolving and transcending the ego, I believe. And when we can come to a point of no longer resisting the thoughts in our head and disidentifying with them, this is when we can truly transcend the ego. And I think it'd be really nice to give like exact examples or maybe thoughts that may pop up in our head that would be coming from the ego. Did you want to start with some?
Yeah, I mean, just to give very practical example of ego strengthening, like for me, the ego was always about self-improvement, what I thought was myself. And then like what happened is that I created routines, and there's nothing bad about routines. Like routines can be serving, yeah, also they can also serve your awakening, let's say that. But if it's really about improving that body mind, and for example in the morning, I at some point I had an extensive routine of like an hour and a half. First I have my like hot water with lemon and a little bit of Himalayan salt, and then I go out to breathe some fresh air, and then I come back in to have half an hour meditation, some Buddhist prayer, and then setting some intentions, journaling, and all of that is good, like, and then making breakfast, and all of that is good, and it can serve, but it can also become a distraction of what's truly here. And then you feel like if I don't do that, like 90-minute marathon in the morning, routine marathon in the morning, I don't feel good, or my day is not good. And then suddenly all of that ego strengthening is becoming pointless because it doesn't make you happy.
Mm, yeah, it's a great example. Who am I if I don't meditate in the morning? Who am I if I don't do my routine in the morning? What will people think of me? Or what will I think of myself? Who am I without these things? There's so many things that we can identify with. It can be with people. Usually I like to pay attention if I'm saying my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my house, my car, my job. And, along with ego often will come a sense of pride. And, what I find also is on the outside, for a lot of us, it may appear as though we feel that we're better than others, but actually underneath it all, we're feeling less than. So the aim is to really remember that no one is better or worse than anyone, right? And if we can really fully embody that mentality, it's really important. And for me, I'm a life path 7, so I tend to be a lot in my mind. So my process can be very different from others, but I actually like to embrace and take advantage of the mind and using it in a way that can help me to rewire my brain. However, I do realize that there's something beyond that, because as you were saying, like ultimate ego transcendence actually is beyond our senses, beyond our thinking. And so how do we get there is the question. Well, for me, I've been able to transcend a lot of my ego through meditation and breath work. And in those practices, I'm actively letting go of the mind, releasing that resistance, experiencing what I call as the great surrender. And, it can be tricky. It can be really tricky. And I just want you to, share your experience and how you've been able to do it successfully, because it is very obvious that you've done a very great job at transcending your ego. So I would love to hear from you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And even that makes me smile
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
there's still an ego that likes to get inflated on that. On that, oh yeah, I've done all the work, I've been through that, and so great now. And in the same time, it's still just the ego. So there's no transcendence. And you said it so beautifully, that. Uh, you like to feel better than others, and then at other times you feel worse, and this is really what the ego does. And everybody, can be very practical about it in their life, observing the ego, and seeing when is inflation happening, like right now, for example. You gave me a compliment, thank you. And it's very nice, but being like super vigilant about, okay, what's happening, as a reaction to what you just said to me, and seeing, okay, like, of course, yeah, I'm grateful and everything, but there's a little part that wants to feel better, like, oh yeah, I've done the work, I'm better than others. And then, like, in times when we're not successful, or when we're in conflict, suddenly we feel like we're at the bottom, and we're getting deflated, and it's really like the energy is it feels like the energy is moving out of our body. But it's really that how can I say, the interplay between inflation getting high and deflation getting low, that keeps you in your ego and in your identification. And to realize that first, like people say, oh yeah, life comes in waves, sometimes better, sometimes worse. Yeah, of course, life will throw things at you. That's clear. But to really be vigilant about what's your personal reaction to that. That's, I think, is very, very important. And to answer your question, I haven't answered your question actually. Um, uh, yeah, for me, it's really sitting still and being vigilant, and then transferring this vigilance and this stillness into my daily life. That's really like, that's been the path. Because of course, you can go to so many retreats and do so many meditations and vipassana, and all kinds of beautiful ceremonies. This is all nice, but if you cannot take the stillness and the vigilance back to your normal everyday life, there's no change going to happen.
Well said. I love that. And just the ping ponging that we do between the two, right? Feeling better and then less than, and better than, and then less than. It seems to be a pattern for a lot of us. So really getting to the middle point is, yeah, can be a little tricky. And for me, what I've learned is, in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, it was, and I do see this in a lot of other people, it's this like almost like hypervigilance of trying to pay attention to all of our thoughts constantly. And that in itself can be super overwhelming, and just analyzing all of our thoughts, right? It's really good to look at our thoughts, but what is our process, and how is it, how are we allowing it to make us feel inside, right? So for me, it was learning to look at the thoughts, but not obsess over them, right? So, and in moderation too, within balance. So some people can be doing it all day long, and it could be very energetically and emotionally draining, right? So if you can get to a point where you are able to look at your thoughts, yes, you can analyze them, but continually and actively release that judgment. And then at the same time, remember, you don't have to analyze every little thing, because there's this saying, you can't think your way into healing, for example. Like, you have to like fully let go of the mind, as you were saying. Eventually, like, we feel our feels, yes, we can like journal and we can analyze a little bit, but that in itself is not going to be enough for us to transcend our ego. You have to learn to be okay with releasing the mind and leaning into that deep trust that God or universe or a higher power of your understanding has, got it all figured out. Everything actually truly is in alignment, I like to say, no matter what. Like, everything is working out for the highest, even though the mind tries to tell us otherwise. And I think that's what creates a lot of our suffering. Like, that's one of the biggest ideas that we have in our head that creates so much pain in our day to day. Well, this shouldn't be that way, and that person shouldn't act that way. As soon as we start to think that things should be different, that is an indicator that we're having an ego flare up, I like to say. So for me, how I've learned to have more peace is really just trust that not only the light works for the dark, but also the dark works for the light. It's how we get closer to love, to light, or fully embodying it at least.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, for anyone that's here, if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the question box. And then I just came up with a handful of questions as well. And yeah, we can start here. So,
And I want to just acknowledge one thing. Sorry, Kristen,
please,
to interrupt you. I want to acknowledge
please
one
do.
thing because
Yeah.
you said very beautiful and true things right now. And what's really, really at the core is the resistance to the present moment.
Mm,
And if you are experiencing that something should be different, and if it's external, yeah, you can ask yourself, can I change that? That's totally fine. But if it's not possible, then most people stop there and get grumpy or sad or scared or whatever. And here I find that there's the chance to turn inwards and say, hey, like what's going on in here, what kind of resistance is here, and what emotion is here. And then instead of like staying with what's on the outside, coming to your emotions and to the feelings, and be with them fully without resisting them. Yeah, because for many people the resistance continues then to the inside world, and so they get cut off to themselves. And that's when you miss the chance to live your life fully.
yes, definitely. I totally agree with you there. Welcome in, sister. Nice to see you in the house. And oh, this just popped in my head. A really nice practice is, you can go to the grocery store, wherever, and just set the intention that you are just going to let go of all thoughts. There's going to be no need to judge or criticize anything that you encounter within that experience at the grocery store, wherever you are. And do this on a regular basis and just see how it turns out for you, right? Because we're always trying to like put people in boxes and criticize something, or maybe make ourselves feel better than someone else, and like, gosh, how stupid, how this, how that. And so just to be aware of that. And also, like, another trap is an ego trap is judging our judgmental thoughts. In order to transcend the ego to a higher degree, we actually need to release that judgment around our judgmental thoughts and other people's judgmental thoughts, right? Oh gosh, why does that person have to be so judgmental? So annoying, so draining, Got to keep my vibration really high.
Mm-hmm.
And another big one is just like blocking everything and everyone out. That can be when you have a really major and big spiritual awakening. That's really common for people, is just to want to shut everything out and protect your energy. But just remember, we are wired for connection. So, yes, isolation and being alone can be very valuable, but all within balance, of course. And in order to finally release those boundaries, stricter boundaries, it's important to be able to learn to trust yourself, and being able to go out to these environments and be around certain people. Know that you can say no, or say, I don't want to speak about this. This is a mental boundary I have. I find that if I don't do these things, it can be a little bit energetically draining, for example, right? So, really dissolving those people pleasing tendencies is really important. And, the ego usually flares up when we feel unsafe, right? We're perceiving things as threats, right? So if we can just go inward and remind ourselves that we can trust ourselves and work on those healthy boundaries, then there shouldn't be anything to fear anymore, right? So yeah, just wanted to, I felt that that's a really important part of the ego journey is learning about those healthy boundaries and leaning into that deep, deep trust.
Yes.
And then we get to
And
decide. We get to decide where we go, who we hang out with, how long we hang out with them as well. When we don't, if underneath we're thinking that we don't have control over these things, of course we're going to perceive so many things as threats, right?
yeah, and this is so beautiful that you say that, because the most important thing at all is that we remind ourselves about the fact that we have no clue what's going on here. Like, we are energetic particles in bodies made of flesh and bone, wandering on a blue planet, flying in a solar system, within a galaxy, within galaxies. We have no clue what's going on here, and all that the ego tries to do is to keep us safe and to keep us in control, and to give us a sense of, hey, like, now I'm talking to Kristen, so I must be good in some way. I must be providing some sort of benefit to this world, or however you want to put it. But that's really and that's really at the core also of the ego. This notion of I'm not good enough, and this is the little lie that the ego is telling you, the real you. I'm talking about the real you, um, to stay in control. Because if you're not good enough, you need somebody to steer the boat. And for many people, this can be like the ego completely taking over. And what happens then is that automatic patterns keep repeating again and again and again, and you're living a life that's not free, that's not
Totally.
truly yours. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one of the ways is where we keep looping and never feeling fulfilled is when we keep looking for things outside of us, validation specifically to fill our cup. And yes, it might feel good temporarily, whether we're in a new relationship, get a new job, or whatever it is, have a new experience. It's not sustainable to keep looking outside of ourselves to feel whole.
Mm.
So, and you can go easy on yourself to just like do it in every area of your life is, I mean, I like to say it's not really realistic. So you can work on certain areas of your life one by one and then just strengthen in each area. It can be, again, very tricky when we're trying to take on all of these things all at once, and just give yourself grace. Like, little by little it will get easier to transcend that ego. And remember to celebrate yourself too, because I feel like here's another ego one where a lot of people can, I guess you can say, demonize or look down upon people who are celebrating themselves, and they can automatically just create this story that, oh, you must be so full of yourself, right? And it's not always necessarily the case. Like, it can be helpful to distinguish the two and see if someone's like, posting a selfie, for example, online on social media to shine their light and love and send a beautiful message to the collective for them to feel uplifted, versus, oh, I'm just trying to feel like I'm better than somebody else, and oh, I look more beautiful than all these people, so I'm going to feel really good today, right? So just be careful of these distortions that you may deal with, right? It's not always the case. And even if that person is posting that selfie, um, with a superficial foundation, like, learn to release that judgment. Know that's part of their spiritual journey, and eventually they will evolve. And do trust that. It's really important. Like, I really learned that the more we focus on, like, oh God, this person, they're going in the wrong direction and they're just strengthening their ego, and gosh, they're a lost cause, the more we actually help to contribute to that co-creation of that reality. So yes, it's important to be able to distinguish things, because it actually helps us to be able to decide who we should get close to and who we shouldn't. But is there judgment within that, right? Is the question. Because if there's judgment and criticism, that's where it becomes problematic. And I think I did share this with you, Franz, like, comparing is very useful. It's just when we're starting to feel more than or less than is when it becomes problematic, right?
Sorry, I think now you cut out for the last for the last sentence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying that it's useful to compare, of course, because it can help us, figure out what boundaries we need with certain people, right? We don't want to be like ignorant to things, right? That's not helpful. So the problem is when we're starting to feel more than or less than, right? So just, feel into it when you start to find yourself comparing. Is there a
Yeah.
purpose of this? Is it valuable in this situation, or am I being really judgmental? Am I feeling kind of icky in my being?
And to be quite honest, I'm not sure if it's even necessary to compare yourself to anybody. If you, I think the more you rest within yourself, the less it's necessary to actually compare yourself to anyone. And
Yeah.
one thing I want to add to what you said is something that I learned in my life as a guideline is um, separate the parts within the other that are enlightened and be compassionate about the parts that are not.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Oftentimes the comparing is not necessary, but maybe if you're like, say, an HR person at a corporation, and you hire people regularly, that's something that might be valuable for you, and you can learn to do that practice without judgment, right?
It's I think it's just the word comparing that doesn't click with me.
It doesn't.
And
Okay.
if you say resonate, for example,
Mm,
then I'm already good, because
got
for
it.
comparing, in order to compare, you need the mind, and then you need to put in labels. But if there's
Yes.
resonance, then it's especially like let's not talk on a corporation level, because of course the system is structured in a way that is based in ego. So I mean
Competing, for
that's a
sure.
whole different conversation, and
Definitely. Yeah,
to be had. So
for
so
sure.
but really, if we stay with you and me and people who are watching this or listening to this, like what's really like benefiting them, what gives them happiness and a sense of inner peace when they go through their day. That for me, that's the real question. And then it's about like, do you need to compare? Like, if, for example, I go in the morning, I go and I have a coffee. Do I first need to go over a list of places and then compare them and see, okay, what is the best quality of the coffee? What is the best price? And which one has the best croissants and all of that? Or do I simply see, okay, what's here right now? And then whatever comes up, I just go for it without like
Mm,
any further analysis
mm,
or or comparison.
mm, mm. Wow. Yeah, that's a whole new perspective for me. I like that. We're so used to comparing things like cars or food, and which one's better, and oh man, I shouldn't make that decision until I fully compare all of these options. I really do like that though, because I have learned to surrender to that way a lot more in my life, and it's been like a huge weight lifted off of me, but it's just really trusting your intuition to finally get there, right? So it's really like, okay, I can remember I have intuition, remember I have a higher self, I can trust the guidance that I'm given. So instead of like going through this massive process of trying to compare all of my options, whether it's in dating or buying a car or a house, you learn to release the mind and go for what resonates, right? And I love that because actually, in my perspective, in my experience, it's actually saved me a lot of time doing that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's really huge. I love that.
Yeah, and especially in dating, like what are you comparing? It's not even possible to compare one person to the other. And so like I've used dating platforms myself for quite a long time. When they got released back then, I stopped using them about a year and a half ago, because I realized that you are comparing only based on certain um facts or on certain things that are that you can grasp from that profile. And it's only so much, like when you meet a person in real life, and there's no expectation of, oh, what does this person bring to the table in terms of partnership, or does she fit to my ideal of of starting a family, or whatever might be there. If all of this just falls away and you meet that person without any of these concepts in your mind, and any of those expectations, then suddenly you might date somebody completely different. So it's really also a miracle to see what happens when you let go of your mind and all of these perceptions.
Oof, gosh, I felt that. Yeah, that's great. I think that a lot of people that tend to be single or break up and enter new relationships frequently, that's what's going on in their minds, the whole comparison. And they're so worried about money, status, looks, or whatever it is that it's like, am I even in the right relationship? And then you're just fully not even present with that person that you had a chance with and a great opportunity with. And so, yeah, to really ask yourself that, are you being fully present within your relationship, whether it's a friendship, a new friendship, a romantic relationship, your family, coworker? Are you really giving your full self?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't realize we're the ones sabotaging everything, or at least part of it, right? And it's just being reflected back to us.
Right, right. And the good news about that is that it's not actually us, but it's our ego
Exactly.
that's that's interfering with us. And
Yeah,
this is
well said.
and and this is very important to mention, or I would like to point it out, because most people just they identify with the ego. They think, oh, that's me, like I'm that body, I'm my thoughts and the emotions and all of that. So suddenly people are that's when life gets complicated, because you have to manage everything all the time. Yeah. So like true ego strengthening, if you go all the way, is super exhausting, because you have to be liked by everyone. You have to make sure that you function very well, that you're successful, that you tick all the boxes that our system says are needed when you want to be a good part of this society. So that's when life gets complicated, and it's really scary to step out of it at the same time, because we feel lost. And that's why many people shy away from ego transcendence, because you have to give up. You have to give up what you thought you are, or what you thought is like good for you, and suddenly uh, you open up to this, I don't know, like this emptiness, and there's nothing there. There's no solution provided at first. But when you really meet it, and this is the chance, that this is the real possibility, when you really meet it, this feeling of feeling completely lost and not knowing what's going on, and like almost drowning in the emptiness, to be a bit dramatic, then um, then there's the chance to fall out. Like my teacher, he calls it the black hole, and you fall into the black hole, and you feel really this despair. Despair is the emotion that you feel like there's no control and you feel helpless, and there's despair, and then you fall out on the other side, and on the other side there's only bliss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Well said. Just can quickly check the question box. We're good. Any comments here? Just soaking that in. Okay, we're good actually. I'm surprised. uh, let's see what we got here. You know, I think this is a good one to talk about, the ways that the ego can subtly show up in our spiritual practice, even when we think we are transcending the ego. What can that look like?
Mm.
For me, I'm instantly thinking about how people can get very attached to their practices such as meditation or breath work or yoga or crystals. They attach to those things, they identify with those things as if it makes them who they are or better than anyone else. So, I think I've shared this with you. I like to be able to distinguish, like if someone might be more evolved than me in a particular area, just because, like, we all have strengths and weaknesses at the end of the day. And of course, we can improve on our weaknesses and make them our strengths, absolutely. But, if it's something that we're struggling with and we want to hire a mentor, for example, right? It'd be good to know, like, wow, this person seems like they've done a really good job at transcending their ego, for example. Well, I'm gonna hire Franz so he can help me with my ego. So I think that those times it can be really valuable to look at that. And I like that you called me out. We had a call not too long ago and I had compared, and I was really like, wow, thank you for noting that. And then I did a quick check-in with myself to see if, like, I felt any less than, and I didn't, and that felt really good. I was like, okay. Because
Mm.
back in the day, oftentimes that was something that I did experience. So it's good to still check in every now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really happy that you did, and you uh, basically you fell through the hole. And how I also like to use the onion model. Basically, you peel off the layers like an onion, and then you get to the core, and that's who you really are. And with all the trauma that we experience in life, and everybody experiences trauma in some sort. Like when you're born, you feel one with your mom, and after 6 months, you suddenly have a realization that this is actually, I'm in a different body. I'm not my mother, and this is the first trauma of separation. And then, of course, that creates this ego that protects the body, and there's nothing wrong about that. But to be aware of it, I think that's the key, because the ego will always stay there because you're in a body, I'm in a body. So in some way, uh, an automatic protection, I like to call it an antivirus software, for example, yeah, uh, is good, because as you said, like that creates a healthy boundary, and you don't have to um, whenever you meet a person, for example, you don't have to go through a list of things like, oh, does that person meet my standards? Are they nice? Are they kind? Are they smart enough? And so on. Are they pretty? Whatever it is, like you don't have to go through that list. You simply feel like, okay, is there a resonance? Do you feel positive around that person? Is that person um, elevating you on your path? Yeah. And it doesn't mean that they have to flatter you all the time and say, oh, you're so good. Everything you say is so great. No, but it's really that you see if that person is supporting you at your deepest level. And
Mm,
no matter what you do and how crazy it may seem to them, they say, hey, I'm here to support you in this life on your path. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really, that's like that those are the true friends. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that, to be able to get to a point of no longer having those checklists, just really knowing what's important to you, like fully embodying those, whatever it is, core values, morals within yourself, and trusting that you're going to know what resonates and what doesn't. And you don't have to think about it or bring that piece of paper, to figure it all out. And at the same time, I do know the value of those things too, because I mean, for me specifically, I know that there was a good pro to it, massive pros to it, because I felt like there was a point in my life, and I'm still discovering myself, of course, but this was like after one of my major spiritual awakenings. These lists actually really helped me to reel in more aligned relationships, all types of relationships, and I actually would pull these lists out and talk about it with people. And of course, when I first started, there was higher levels of judgment. And then you learn, like it's okay to release these people, and know that they can have different truths as you as well. And it doesn't make them bad or wrong. It's just the mind that makes it up. It's our programming and conditioning suggesting that, right? So when you can get to a point of releasing that and just learning to trust yourself, like how much ease that brings into your life is like undescribable. But yeah, like I'm at a point in my life where I do trust myself so much more that I don't necessarily have to pull out these checklists all the time. But I do like to refresh my memory every now and again. And I think that if we're just on autopilot all the time, then we may not bring in, I guess you could call them, higher truths into our life and embody that, where we can, like, I guess you can say, upgrade spiritually, not making like as though we're better or anything, but we are meant to upgrade and evolve as time goes on. So we might want to switch our values a little bit in the way we believe and what our faith is like. And to do that check in every now and again, I think is really nice. And then to create those new lists for yourself and get clear on that, because when we're just on autopilot all the time, I feel like it doesn't allow for that space often. So do you feel that, what I'm saying? Do you understand
So
that?
I'm
Yeah.
going to be 100% honest.
Yeah, please.
At the same time, I feel that you're absolutely right
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being conscious about like what what's here and what kind of values and life perspectives are aligned with it. And at the same time, it might be that there's still a little bit of fear holding on to something, to some sort of structure,
Yeah.
um, to to help you go through your life and go through the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's as important as bringing out those lists to look at them. It's important to also bring up that fear on the other side and be very like honest to yourself to say, hey, well, here's fear. Yeah, yeah, of course, I'm scared. Like I want to live the best life, and yeah, I'm still a little bit scared. Like, what's gonna happen if I fall back into autopilot, and then to simply sit with that, and bring that up, and then the healing can happen. And with every little level of healing or step, um, more layers of the onion can fall off, and then less comparisons needed, and less lists are needed, less structure, less analyzing. All of that can fall away, and it it's very important. Like many people, they say, oh yeah, now ego transcendence is so hard. I can't simply wake up from today to tomorrow. And so many people say, oh yeah, I'm not going to wake up in this life anyway. Why even try? And why even try to transcend the ego? So I can say about that, it's really simply about being compassionate with yourself. And it's not about how, like, if you can be fully enlightened, if you can be the next Buddha. It's not about that. It's simply about um healing, about off these layers and dropping some of your masks, I like to say. Take those masks off. And then you get a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more raw. And yeah, of course, as you said before, very correctly, then it might be time to go into hermit mode and withdraw for a bit, to stay in your own energy for a while, and then come back out and give it a try and show up in the world different. And I think that's like you don't need to go all the way. If you reach enlightenment, great for you. Thumbs up, you get the enlightenment sticker. But if you don't, it's also fine, as long as you are on that path of healing.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I like that you pointed out the fear that is still attached when we are doing these checklists and stuff. Because I felt it instantly as soon as you said it. I was like, oh, there definitely is some fear within that. But then I like that you also noted, like, I feel like you acknowledge the value of that. So it's, for me, I like to look at those things more like clarifiers as to what's important to us and as stepping stones. They're not meant to be there forever if we are to evolve. Enlightenment sticker, I love
Hey, me too.
it. Oh, the masks. Yeah, what are some of the masks that we can wear? So there's like the good guy, the good girl mask. There's the player mask, the funny guy, funny girl mask, the damsel in distress, there, which is like, acting as though we are a victim and victim of our circumstances, situation of life, just blaming a lot of things outside of us and wanting to be saved. Then there is the perfectionist one. Definitely wore that mask a lot of times throughout my life. And those are the ones that are popping up right now. And can you think of any masks that us humans wear?
So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know
Yeah.
about the Enneagram?
I'm not like, I've heard of it, and I did years ago look into it, and I did pull it up for myself. I think I took a test or something like that, but I don't really know too much, to be honest.
So just in a nutshell, yeah, because we're talking about masks. The Enneagram is a system that Pythagoras in like came up with. Nowadays, you would have said he channeled it, and so he channeled it 2,500 years ago, and he was obsessed with the cosmos and how the cosmic energy is represented within us. And
Mm,
basically, he was not a mathematician but a philosopher, and he took the numbers from 1 to 9, saying there is a different energetic frequency in each of those, and everybody gets something of all of those, but we have one which is dominant, and with that we have a certain set that is a little bit more present in this form, in this mind body.
oh, you froze up there. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so with those different frequencies, we have a little bit of all of those 9 within us, and some of those you just mentioned already.
Yeah.
And you could even, like, instead of, he calls it ego fixations, but you
Mm,
could also say masks that you wear. Yeah,
okay.
and
Okay.
it's a little bit more elaborate, but in a nutshell, like, there's one mask that you wear like most of the time.
Mm,
That's your main mask, like the go-to mask. Whenever I feel I'm threatened, yeah,
mm,
then this is the mask that I put on in order to be safe again.
mm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so there's, I mean, there's, of course, there's lots of different ways to look at it. I really like the Enneagram for the clarity and the really the chance to see through that mask and to be able to take it off and say, okay, I'm not going to fall into that automatic behavior again. I'm going to take off that mask. And so those are 9 masks. And you already said, like, perfectionist, victim, um, there's also, yeah, I mean, there's a
There's
couple
so
of others.
many.
Basically there's 9 core ones,
Nine.
and what's really important is that there's like they're based in either fear, anger, or shame. And
Mm,
so people who are looking a lot for recognition, attention, and love from the outside, they are mostly shame based because inherently they don't feel like they're good enough. Yeah, they
mm,
don't feel like they're lovable. And people who are more based in anger, they have, as you said before, they have this resistance towards life. And if things are not as I want, then I have to do something, or it comes out in different forms. But yeah, and then fear types are really like looking for ways to stay in control by yeah, like by coming up with clever solutions, problem solving. All of that is coming from those fear types, and that's I find that really helpful to reflect on the ego.
mm. I love that. And this is something you're still actively helping people with through your coaching, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been learning the Enneagram from my teacher,
Hmm.
Eli Jackson Bear, in the US, and I'm flying to see him on Saturday.
Wow.
So I'm going for a retreat, and he's been teaching the Enneagram for more than 40 years now,
Wow. Okay.
um, and uh, uh, and it's really a beautiful tool to wake up and to yeah and to basically see, okay, what part of my ego is keeping me in a certain pattern that's not healthy for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. So if anyone is interested, I would say definitely feel into if you feel resonant with Franz because it's something he can help you with.
Yes.
Beautiful. I love
Adver-
that.
Advertising done.
Talking about, identification, this came up for me is a common one can or common one we have is identifying with being the calm person, calm and cool person. So, but we're not really allowing ourselves to fully feel. Maybe we're feeling angry underneath it all, but we're not because, we want to be that good person who's all calm, cool, and collected. We now are stuck with all these emotions that are trapped within our body. So that was one that I discovered about myself probably about close to 5 years back. And I was very grateful that a friend called me out for it. So, do you think that you identify with this? And I was like, oh, yep. Can be really hard to hear these things, but I do say this, like, I really highly recommend, like, if you want to evolve in life, set yourself up with people that are actually going to point out these things, or at least use compassionate inquiry to be like, hey, like, do you think that maybe you're having an ego flare up and you're identifying with X, Y, and Z instead of just like stating it as a matter of fact, maybe deep down they really know that's what's going on, but you can use compassionate inquiry instead to like open yourself up a little bit more. I learned that about myself in my earlier years. Now my friends can just say it out and they're really accurate with things that are going on within me. So I don't mind if they're like, hey, I see this, this is what's happening. But in my earlier years, there's no way I would have just resisted all of that. So, I did let people know, like, can you please use compassionate inquiry with me instead? It works a lot better. And then my ego's not freaking out. And then I can explore that thing.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But is one question, is compassionate inquiry, is that like a certain technique?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's more of just like tapping into another person and realizing that they're in maybe, say, an emotional state where they're trying to protect themselves. So instead of just pointing things out, you're just asking instead. You're not coming in with the energy of like, I know, you know? It's just like, let's explore together. I really want you to empower yourself and come to your own conclusions type of deal instead of me trying to push my beliefs onto you, right?
Yeah, and that
Especially for people that struggle with codependency and like they don't really, they're always looking outside of themselves for answers. I feel like compassionate inquiry is so much more useful. I mean, once, your loved one or whoever it is has really strengthened themselves in a way where they trust their inner guidance, that's a different story. But yeah, if someone really struggles to know who they are and what they're about and accessing those inner truths or higher truths, then I feel like compassionate inquiry is definitely the way to go. It's more empowering.
Yeah, it sounds more empowering.
Yeah, definitely. And then, is there anything else you wanted to say, or do you mind if I get into another question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So, how can we start releasing the need to prove our worth and drop the armor we've built around ourselves? Hmm. Do you want me to answer, or are you just feeling into that?
Tapping into the silence,
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
stillness.
I love that.
But if you wanna, if you feel like going for it, then go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is something I have a history of for sure. And I mean, I think it's all on a spectrum. We're all to a degree unconsciously at times will be trying to prove our worth and protect those identities. For me, it's just, for me, I think the biggest thing was just becoming the observer more and paying attention to the times that I was trying to do that instead of ignore it and act as if it's like no big deal. Like it's really important to be aware of those times we are trying to prove our worth and have that compassion for ourselves in those moments to be like, hey, like I recognize, like, wow, I've been trying to give all this extra love, care, and respect to my partner, for example, because I wanted them to think that I'm a good partner and in turn that they were going to give me more love, care, and respect, right? And, just use that compassionate inquiry within yourself to be like, why am I doing this? Like, where was this modeled? What is the root of this? So if we can actually get to the root, for me personally, and I do see this with a lot of other people, you start to release that judgment about yourself more. So then you can transcend it and dissolve those limiting and unhealthy ways. If we can like always get to the root of why we're doing things, it's like, oh wow, okay, like I'm not crazy. There's not something wrong with me. It's just it's programming and conditioning. Like I deserve that compassion just like everyone else does. And then just keep giving yourself that compassion in those times, and then sit with yourself in stillness to see like what is best moving forward. Invite that in for yourself, whether it's a vision or inner knowing. Like you can just ask God, source, higher power of your understanding, or your higher self, whatever it is you feel resonant to, and see what comes through. Mm-hmm.
How compassionate can you be with yourself?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's different from situation to situation. For me, sometimes it means just talking to my inner children and checking in with them. What is it like that you want? Is it a hug, a loving hug? Do you want me to just listen to you and, and let you know that all of your feelings are valid, but that I'm here to take care of you moving forward, and that we don't need to prove our worth? We get to just be, it's safe. Sometimes that's all it requires. And I think it's going to be different every single situation. It's not like exact same thing every single time. Gotta hit that checklist. It's not like meditate, inner child work. It's like trust. Just learn to trust and go with it. What is it that you need?
Yeah. And I find all of what you said is spot on. And I find that like these little aha moments. You say that in English? It's German actually. Aha. It's
Uh-huh.
like oh, like wow, oh, like oh, surprise or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
We call it aha moment.
Yep.
So these moments when you go through your day, and you catch yourself like, and you're like, Franz, what are you doing there? What's happening here? What's going on? And you catch yourself and you're like, ah, okay, yeah, well, that's actually not needed. And then you stop in the moment when you do something. And this is very important, a very, very, very valuable lesson that I received from my teacher, that you can stop at any moment. You can stand in the supermarket and you can look at that person, or you can even talk to that person and say, hey, you're stupid, you look ugly, and you smell like fish. And then when you want to say, get out of this supermarket, or get out of my way, in that
Hmm.
moment, even in that moment, you can stop and you can instead say, oh, I'm sorry. I got confused. Have a great day. And then
Yeah.
immediately the energy changes, and the inner conflict that is projected on somebody outside resolves in that moment. And
Yeah.
this is when healing can happen. And then of course, yeah, and like catching yourself like that, that's the quality of the observer. And you can practice that with meditation or whatever, but really going through the day and being mindful in your very casual situations that you encounter many, many times per week, even. Yeah, I think that's really, that's powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love like, giving yourself that grace to flip the script type of deal, switch the energy. It's okay that that happens because, if we don't give ourselves that grace or compassion, then we're just more likely to continue those unhealthy ways. As soon as we can just observe, detach, like, wow, okay, now I have an opportunity to click the reset button and flow with my heart. So that's really important for me, at least. Very, very important. And another trap that just actually popped in my head was attaching to the whole idea of transcending the ego, right? That strengthens our ego in itself.
Yeah.
So, are we on a mission to transcend it and attaching and attaching and attaching and feeling as though it makes us better, you know?
So yeah, absolutely. And I can give you a specific example from my own life. And about 2 years ago, I had or was it 3 years ago? Never mind. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I had an ego death experience. No, it was 2 years ago. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I had an ego death experience, and it was really like this. I completely disappeared in that moment, and what was left was the observer, and everything, like my body, I felt like my stomach moving. I heard my thoughts in my head, and I heard people talk outside, and it was just the same. I felt the wind. I was lying on the ground in a park. I felt the grass. I saw the sky, and everything was the same. Everything was the same. It was all a perception um, that was perceived by the observer. And in that moment, I had this ego death experience, and afterwards, for a couple of days, my mind completely stopped working in a normal way. And I thought, am I getting stupid right now, or what's happening? Because my mind stops working, and that in itself is an ego resistance. And then but then after this experience, like my ego was coming and trying to integrate this experience into the ego, basically saying, Franz, you had this ego death experience, now you're spiritually advanced, so now you can move to the next level of spiritual practice, or even spiritual service, and help other people get there, and so on and so on. So this and then in this moment to be aware of it and to be vigilant, really vigilant, that there's this thinking process going on in my head. Yeah. And to let go of that and say, okay, well, it's thoughts. Yeah. And this is one very important thing. Of course, it's nice to analyze. Yeah. But if you don't take your thoughts too seriously, yeah, and you just watch them like clouds going by in the sky, you just watch them go by, you will see how many of them come and go without you needing to act out on them, or to analyze, or to do anything, or change, or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel you on that. And I do believe that the more we evolve, the less concerned we are over concepts and labels and comparison, of course. It's just, it becomes less resonant to us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because your energy pattern changes.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's a, it's a great experience. All right, so let's see here. Hmm, okay. I think this will be a good one to ask. So, how can transcending the ego transform our relationships with others and help us connect on a deeper, more meaningful level? Oof, oof. Hmm. Well, what's coming through me now is, well, instead of trying to prove who's right or wrong or better than or less than, and just all this fighting and arguing, or we can drop into me mentality, or it could be them first mentality. We're now in what's for the highest good mentality, and now we're more open-minded and hearted, releasing that judgment, so it creates like a stable foundation for people to become vulnerable and heal. And then naturally, we obviously become way more deeply connected to the other person. And you get to grow more with that person overall, because you're not worried about protecting some sort of identity. I'm the good girlfriend, I'm the good boyfriend. Oh, I have to prove that I'm right in this situation. I can't let them get away with this. Instead, you release all of that, and you really truly become open to hearing other perspectives and not having to compete with them, because you remember who you are, and you're secure in that truth, in that way of life. And I like to say, when we embody that part of ourselves, we become unshakable and unbreakable. So, anyone can come our way, and it's like, yeah, you don't have to see them as a threat anymore. But I think that also requires having a lot of open dialogue and setting intentions with whoever it is you're in a relationship with. This all, like, straight across the board, any type: co-working, romantic, family, friends, and really initiating that conversation to let them know, like, this is what you want to commit to within relationship. Sometimes, I mean, oftentimes I've learned that people are not going to just know. It's actually good to verbally speak about these things and not just assume that people will catch on, right? If we're acting in a certain way or practicing certain things within our relationships. But yeah, it just got me thinking about the book called Conscious Loving. And that was one of the most valuable books that I've ever read. But basically, it gives you all of the foundational co-commitments that would be required if you want to have a conscious relationship with somebody. And of course, like, if you're just practicing it alone, not to say beautiful things can't unfold and the other person can't grow, but to be able to verbally speak on these co-commitments and have someone agree to them is a whole next level, I like to say, of growth that you can open yourself up to within that relationship. So for me, speaking on these things and seeing if people are open to it is really, really important. And in the end, I just trust it always will form deeper connections with any type of relationship you're in. And
Yeah.
also, and another thing that actually just popped up is speaking your microscopic truth is one of the most important things, I think, on the journey to transcending your ego, because I think we hide our truths because, our ego is so strong. What are people going to think of me? What are the negative consequences going to be? Someone going to leave me? Are they going to break up with me? Am I going to lose my job?
Yeah. And to put all of them on a table. And that's the,
You broke up there. You said to put them all on the table is what I heard
yeah,
last.
put them all on the table. And you don't have to put them all on the table in front of everyone, but in front of people who matter to you. Like put it all on the table. If you see it, let them see it too. Expose it. It's really if the ego is exposed, it dies. And that's when you can transcend. And we're so scared because we're so scared of judgment. We're so scared of like not being good enough, not receiving love, or even people like ending friendships. If I say how I really feel, they're gonna end the friendship or even the relationship. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And and so really like putting all of it on a table and
Yeah.
expose it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and see that you're gonna survive that. You
Yeah.
are still there after you expose yourself fully.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, anytime I'm going through a grieving process because certain people have been shed in my life, I like to remind myself that it's creating space for the new, more aligned version of myself. And that's a beautiful thing. Of course, let yourself grieve, let yourself feel. It's okay to be sad about releasing these connections, or maybe you're not fully releasing them. It's just creating, I guess, larger boundaries, so you're not going to see them as often. Maybe you're only going to connect with certain people a few times in your life, or you're in a year, and you're only going to maybe hang out with them for a few hours, because that's kind of like what you're feeling is going to bring the most evolution for that relationship. And if you connect anymore, it can get a little bit chaotic and disorderly, and then people are not evolving, right? So just go with your heart, feel into it, meditate, do some breath work, and know it's okay to like do those regular, I don't want to say assessments, but check-ins to see like where you're at with certain relationships if it's not feeling really harmonious anymore. And then, again, like, also I think another big egoic thought that comes through our minds is like, I have to cut that person out forever and ever. I used to be there, and that was because I come from a huge background of people pleasing, and I finally came to a point where a lot of people pleasers do, and you say enough's enough, and then you just make all these cuts, and because you were a doormat most of your life. And then eventually you realize like we actually are wired for connection, and people do grow. So like, with that being said, maybe 5 years down the road, things shift energetically, and it might feel resonant to start a relationship with that person again. So I just say, like, never say never. Forever and ever, I got to cut this person out. That's okay. And like, boundaries also shift as you evolve, right? And as other people evolve within relationship. So maybe that person had a big spiritual awakening, and all of a sudden it's feeling more aligned and you're feeling more drawn to that person. And, instead of having these boundaries where you're only seeing them once in a while, now you're like, oh, well, now I want to hang out with them like every week. And they're on board too. And that's great. So things can shift. Be open to that. It doesn't have to be a specific way all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And things shift, especially when your energy shifts and when you have like big life-changing moments or revelations, then that comes with a certain shift. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
You want to answer
All
the
right.
question?
Yeah, sure. Oh gosh, you're so sweet. How are you feeling right now? I'm feeling very grateful. Also grateful that you just entered the room, brother. This is such an important topic for all of us. Did you want to answer that, Franz?
I'm I'm feeling amazing right now. Like really good. And I also, you know what I like is to if somebody asks you how are you feeling,
Mhm.
I really like to give a bit more specific answer, like what's really going on. You know, there's some tiredness because the last days have been very full, um, uh, and uh, and there's excitement about the topic and about being in this conversation with you. There's a lot of gratitude for being able to, yeah, to connect
Mm,
and to share something really meaningful with people here online. So yeah, that's all present at the same time.
I love that. Yeah, so many of us have been taught to just be like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
Yeah.
And you know, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, you know, programming, but underneath it all is that actually how we feel. And it's nice to be able to convey truly what's going on and know that it's okay to feel a mix of things as well. I learned this about 6 years ago. That's when I started to really truly be honest about how I'm feeling, not even just like saying like maybe I feel grateful, but again, you can elaborate and say I feel tired a little bit actually too, and know that that's all right as well. Or I'm feeling hopeful and a little bit fearful at the same time. It's nice to be able to describe all of these feelings within ourselves, and even like physically, you can say, you know, I'm feeling tension in my chest. Learn to be
Mm,
honest about that with somebody because, you know, maybe they can help you co-regulate if you're really struggling.
yeah. I'm actually feeling some pain in my left shoulder. I have that since the retreat. I was sleeping on a heavy mat, or I don't know, like, but there's a bit of stiffness here in the neck.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
you want to breathe into your neck? We can all breathe into our body if we're feeling any resistance
yeah.
or tension. All right. If you can, sit down. If you're laying down, that's fine too. Just make sure that your spine is straight and close your eyes if it is safe to do so. And breathe in through the nose, expand the belly, and breathe out of the mouth and contract the belly. Continuing to breathe. And on the exhale, just let it come out naturally. You can let out sighs, any noises.
Um,
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Safe to feel. Safe to be. We don't need to prove anything. Remembering we are whole and complete just as we are. Breathing in love and exhaling fear. Let yourself smile. Whatever it is you're feeling, just let yourself experience it. Know that it's not who you are, it's merely an experience. Releasing the minds, treating any thoughts as clouds coming and going. No need to attach. For the next minutes, I encourage you to just trust yourself, continuing to breathe, and I invite you to breathe into any areas of resistance within your body. You can do a little quick body scan as well, starting from your head, working down to your toes, and then breathing into whatever areas you feel called to. It could be one or multiple. And just keep breathing in love and exhaling fear, or breathing in love and exhaling judgments. Starting now. Know that you are worthy of this moment. You are worthy of this peace. Again, you don't need to be a certain way, feel a certain way. Truly just allow yourself to be. Let it go, let it go, let it go. You are perfect and whole just as you are. And on the next breath, breathe up, up, up into the top and hold. And as you hold, just lean into that deep surrender and trust. Envisioning the body receiving oxygen through the skin, through your pores. You are safe, divinely guided, and protected at all times. And when you are ready, you can release the deep sigh. When you are ready, wiggle your toes, your fingers, and open your eyes.
Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. You are worthy, period. I love that. Evolved intentions. So nice to just really let go, letting go of that need to prove anything, feeling like we need to do, be productive, whatever it is, show up in a certain way. They really encourage everyone to do that every day, multiple times a day. It's amazing how much we can release physically from our being when we do something as simple as this, even for just 5 to 10 minutes. All of a sudden, that pain we were feeling, maybe in our stomach, is completely gone, or at least significantly gone. And then you can just keep working on it little by little. I really feel a lot of stuck energy, I like to tap it out or kind of like slap it in whatever area, and it helps a lot. Sometimes breathing isn't going to transcend everything. So just, you can switch it up with different tools that you've accumulated. Sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it's breath work, sometimes it's a combination of things. Remember, just continue to trust and not give up on yourself. And also, again, with the ego, not to attach to having to get rid of any of this either, whether it's emotions or physical pains within our body. Because again, what we resist persists. So instead of being like, I have to get rid of this pain or this feeling, just be open to it. Know that you are worthy of it. And detach from time, because when we're also attaching to time, it often leads to disappointments. So what I like to say is all in divine timing. How are you feeling, Franz? And how is everyone in the house feeling? If you'd like to share.
Very still and very present.
When you guys change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. When we criticize or look at things negatively, frequently, it will usually strengthen the ego and actually strengthen those particular things within ourselves. That was one thing I learned.
Yeah, it's very, very true. It's really like where do you put your attention? And to give a very specific example, um, I think, I think it was my grandma, and I love her, and she's been great all life, but she had this little quirk of like when she's going through the city, and she doesn't like a building because she was into beautiful buildings and architecture. She was like, "Oh, look at this building! It's so ugly," and then she continued doing that, and then at some point I wondered, and I said, like, why don't you look at the beautiful buildings and say, how beautiful is this building here?
Yeah.
And suddenly, if you do that, you have a very different energetic resonance within you, because simply your focus shifted on that, from that ugly building over there to the beautiful building over there. And that
I
could
love that.
be the same with that could be the same with a person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important to have that line within ourselves. Yes, it's valuable to not become ignorant, to notice maybe what we can call as like weaknesses. And I say this without judgment, but whatever you want to call it, like weaknesses, shortcomings, because we can help each other improve when we acknowledge these things. But when it's coming with judgment and our focus is constantly on them, what we don't realize is we're unconsciously creating more of those things. So pay attention to how much energy you're putting into looking at these things.
Yeah. And you said weaknesses and shortcomings, kind of looking for the right word. The word that I would use is unhealed
I
trauma.
like that. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Nice one. Unhealed trauma. Mm-hmm. All right. Do you mind if I go to one more question?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I love this. Hmm. And as I'm looking at these questions, I just thought of how, the ego can become super impatient. Oh my gosh, my time, my time.
Yeah.
And
It,
then we don't,
I
go for it.
just want to say one thing, Kristen,
Mm-hmm.
because that's such a perfect opener from you. If you identify with your ego and with your body, time is running out, and you have to make sure that every single moment is used in a perfect way. And if you are not going to all these great parties and you check all the check marks in your bucket list, you're wasting your life and you're